apartment, own a business in Molalla, we are not charging you SDCs unless you go build a new house somewhere. Or
Right.
you build a brand new commercial building. And the other thing I want to add to that is, and that's kind of a misconception sometimes, because sometimes in a community you'll get the community arguing about SDCs. It's like, I'm not sure why you don't pay them. But the other thing is, a couple of meetings ago you adopted legacy SDCs, some language for legacy SDCs, where if you have a business in town, or you're changing it from one business to another, but it's staying relatively the same. But we went through that. So we kind of pulled those folks off the shelf a little bit for being impacted there. So if you go to, follow me along real quick, and I'll go through this pretty quickly, this sheet. I didn't want to give you this stuff. So, SDCs are charged to new developments, not ratepayers. SDCs fund capital improvements in the form of reimbursements and improvements, and that's what the methodology kind of goes in and determines how to do that. If we're not charging appropriate SDCs, the people who do live here are the ones that pay the bill for the impacts. So I've been here since June of 2013. I think Mac was born then.
Oh my Lord, we're starting this early.
Okay, so the SDC at that time was $903, okay? And that was based on a previous park plan that was done back in the early 2000s. When I arrived, the park master plan was under construction, if you will, towards the end of that plan. I didn't work on most of it, but I was part of kind of finishing it and putting it together. So once that plan was done and we finished it in 2014, I won't go into the details of what was holding it up, but we plowed through that, and I had to tell Mac what that was. He didn't know, but it was what the name of Bolander Field was.
Oh.
You're gonna call it a park or you're gonna call it a field? That was holding it up. Anyway, we fixed that, went through that process, and then we had an engineering firm, Curran McLeod was an engineering firm. They're actually the engineers for the city of Canby. They're still working. They developed the methodology after that park plan was done that created a park fee for SDCs that the city council at that time adopted. And if you look at this sheet here, that fee was $5,570. And so what that fee represented was the improvements that we were going to make over a 20-year period, and this is what people per equivalent dwelling unit were going to pay. And an equivalent dwelling unit is a single family dwelling, 2.3 people per household today?
2.8.
2.8 people per household. That's one EDU. Okay, so if you build something with 3 EDUs, you pay that 573 times, or it might be, adjusted if it's an apartment complex. So then then we had a new city engineer who found a bit of a mistake, something that wasn't calculated in there. So we came back, and that fee was increased to capture everything. There was something not captured, and it might have been the reimbursement portion of it we didn't capture quite right. So that fee was adjusted to $7,368 per EDU. And that fee remained in place until June of 2019. And those of you who were here remember that we spent 6 to 8 months talking about SDCs about every other meeting, okay?
Yep.
And we wrestled with just about the entire concept of SDCs. What we're going into at your next meeting is, what are we going to do with parks? just parks. What happened in 2019 is we started talking about the entire landscape of SDCs. Water SDC, sewer SDC, park SDC, transportation SD, storm drainage SDC, as one picture, okay? As one big picture, because at that time, if you remember, we were really getting close to submitting all of our paperwork for the wastewater treatment plant. That SDC had to be where it needed to be so we could make sure we captured everything between then and now in order to make sure that we had the funds to build that plant that's under construction. So what we did is we kind of created an allocation. This is where we want to be, especially when you start comparing it to other cities. Remember, you've heard me say this before, you have to be careful when you compare, you know, because some cities have really big needs in this area, others have really big needs in that area, and so it can really offset how you look at that big picture. So what happened was, in order to create an SDC that benefited the wastewater treatment plant, make sure we kept that whole, and meeting that allocation, the park SDC of $7,368 was reduced to $2,500. Okay, that's well below what our methodology said we should have charged all those years. But that's what the council did at the time, and that was to preserve the wastewater treatment plant and what we needed to do there. So I'm not saying it was a bad decision. It was the decision that they made at the time, okay? The unintended consequences of lowering that park SDC is at the bottom of this sheet that I gave you. That's how much we left on the table by doing that. But by doing that, we preserved some funding for the wastewater treatment plant. Okay? So, moving forward, after 7 years of that, we have a new park master plan, a brand new one that you all know, that you all adopted. And within that plan has park improvements, the capital improvement plan of that park, and our engineer that creates methodology, Steve Donovan. Some of you have heard him talk in front of you before. He's done a number of these for us. He has created new methodology that applies to this new parks master plan. And one of the things that we have discussed, well, I mean, backing up to 2019, and if you remember when we adopted the transportation system plan, and how that was all part of that. I think we all aged about 10 years during that time frame. But you remember, it's got every project you could possibly think of. Most of them are probably not going to get built. And so council kind of started crunching some of those projects in the TSP to make that SDC a little bit more palatable, right?
Right.
Well, in this Parks Master Plan, if you compare what you did with the TSP, what Mac and his folks really did was try to create a much more practical parks plan. You know, that really looked at what can we build, or what, you know, even if you think of an opportunity that you don't have yet, you know, because sometimes you have an opportunity to buy land that you didn't know you were going to have 2 years ago, which is something that has changed between 2019 and today. You know, we didn't, you know, Yelkus Park was not an idea. We did not know about that opportunity to buy that land. We had yet to really start working hard to have a better relationship, not that we had a bad one, but to realize the benefits of our relationship with MCC, for example. Okay, we hadn't been doing those things yet, and so we're doing that today. That's a change in circumstance from 2019 until today. And so anyway, I'm going to end this pretty quick here. So the proposed fee with this more practical park plan, okay, is, can't read it because I have to put my glasses on, is $6,868, which if you do your comparison with other cities, it's on the lower end. Some cities are twice that, more than twice that in our current region.
Plus a parks fee on their utility bills.
Plus they have a parks fee on the utility bills. So the interesting thing about that is the fee that we're gonna actually ask you to adopt next week or next meeting, or the meeting
It'll be
after
in,
that.
it'll be in May.
Is it May now?
Next
Okay.
week, he'll provide a presentation on the actual plan. I'm talking about STCs in general tonight. He'll
Yeah.
talk about the actual plan,
Yeah.
the actual fee. next
So that fee is $884 less than what people were paying in 2016, 10 years ago. Unheard of, actually, anywhere. And I think people in the community really like the work that we've done on the parks currently, and we have others coming up. So I just wanted to set the stage for you of what happened. I hope that makes sense to you all. Mac's going to talk about SDCs in general, but I kind of wanted you to have all of this in mind as he goes through that, and then when we get into the real SDC, when we bring the park methodology back. Okay?
I have a question, Mayor.
Yes, ma'am.
Is Matt going to discuss reimbursements? You mentioned reimbursements.
That's all part of the
Part of
big
your
picture there.
Okay, because that needs to be cleared up. Okay, thank you.
And Christy, I have a question. Is this going to be in the minutes
Yes,
for this meeting?
of course.
So a little bit of a disclaimer, if anybody in the public does read this, in the upper right-hand corner, it does say February 27th, 2019. If you look at we're not raised, this is just summary, because at the second page it goes, proposed SDCs is 31,000. That's not what we're going to, right? This is from 2019, so.
This is from 2019.
Exactly. I don't want people to go through our minutes and see this and go,
Yeah.
oh my gosh, we're raising SDCs
So-
$10,000. These are just examples of, for
What we did
this meeting.
this was 7 years ago.
Exactly.
So
It's-
if you look at the chart here, this will explain what I was talking about when you kind of created an overall allocation, if you will. The proposed SDCs was where we started, probably in January of 2019, maybe December. And you can see the bulk of where you started and where you ended went to the wastewater treatment plant and transportation. And you see the little money that Parks gets and the little bit of money that Stormwater gets.
You know where I was going.
Mayor, to answer your question specifically, when I add this report to the meeting minutes, I will make sure that there is a title on each page that says from the February 27th, 2019 City Council presentation.
Right.
It will be very clear in the
Yeah.
meeting
Yeah,
minutes.
I just know, as soon as somebody sees this, I'll be getting a call the next morning
Of
going,
course.
we're raising SDCs $10,000, and it's like, no, we're using this as an example.
Yeah,
And that's why I wanted to point that out.
And that's why I wanted to emphasize that if you own a house in, I don't know, pick a street in town,
Right,
these fees don't apply to them.
right. It's only new.
Oh, no, it would be developers and real estate people calling me. So,
Yeah. Anyway,
Ms. Corthell.
Thank
take it
you.
away.
Well, good evening, folks, and a couple of things I just want to, before we jump into this thing, that City Manager Huff talked about, that are important to note at the outset. It's very important to note that the folks that pay these fees, I mean, you guys were just talking about this, are new development and expanded or increased impacts on an infrastructure system, right? So these are the fees that you pay to buy in to what this community has already built. That's a good way to think about it. You're buying into your sewer system that your taxes have paid for, that your SDCs have paid for, that you're buying into the water system, to the parks that you've already built. This is the buy-in for developers, okay? So that's a good way to think about it. It's not a fee that folks get charged unless they're increasing impacts or building new development. So, and we'll get into that a little bit more. But I just wanted to stress that. I think it's really important. The second thing is, really good information on the history of park SDCs, but for now, put that out of your mind. We're just talking about how SDCs work here tonight. We're not talking about adopting a fee. We're not talking about how much it should be. We're not talking about any of that stuff. We're just talking about what's an SDC, where's it come from, getting you guys a base of knowledge. Next meeting, Steve Donovan will be here to talk to you about the actual parks SDC methodology and the proposal that he's put together for that. So that'll be the time to kind of dig into that a little bit more and what you're looking at specifically for this parks fee. And then in May, you'll have an opportunity to adopt that. We have a 90-day notice requirement that obviously we can't put out until we have a methodology that's proposed, or a methodology for proposal. We put that notice requirement out, so that will happen in May. So just to give you guys a quick look ahead. All right, so what are SDCs and how do they work? So these are one-time fees imposed by local government on new development and increased impacts on public facility systems used to fund infrastructure capacity and purpose to ensure growth pays for its own impact on public facilities rather than burdening the existing taxpayers. They're made up of two components: an improvement fee set to fund the capacity increasing portions of the capital improvement plan. New development helps pay for the new infrastructure that must be built because it's coming in. If, for instance, your wastewater treatment plant is sized for about 7,500 to 10,000 people. If the city stopped growing at 75 or 8,000 people, you would not need to build a new wastewater treatment plant. But since the city is growing and new people are developing, eventually you have to build a new wastewater treatment plant. That's where we are right now with this one. That will happen again in 50 years. Okay? So that's what this does, is that's the improvement portion. It's for that capacity increasing portion of it. Then the reimbursement fee is set to reimburse the community for use of capacity in existing facilities. So the community has already put in an 8-inch sewer main, and it is at 50% capacity. Now this new development comes in, and they're gonna take up another 2% of that capacity, just for rough numbers, whatever case may be, right? They're paying for that use of that, right? So now, hey, I get to now use that thing that's already there. I don't have to put it in. I don't have to pay for it except for this SDC, okay? So it's paying back the community for the stuff they've already put in. And we're able to use those different ways. Improvement fees can only be used on capacity increasing capital improvements. Okay, so a new road, they could be used on that. And upsizing of the pipe. If we're upsizing a pipe from 6 to 8 inches, we're growing it by 2 inches. That's actually substantially more than 1/3 because of the way that, you know, the math works, but it's about a little over double. At any rate, that would be capacity increasing, but only that additional 30% capacity that you're gaining can be charged in the improvement fee, or the improvement fee can be spent on, right? Whereas any capital in the system, and that includes, in some cases, replacement when the capital has reached the end of its useful life, because now you're resetting the capital life on that thing, but you're putting in like for like, right? It doesn't have to be capacity increasing to use the reimbursement fee, but it has to be capital in nature. That's a fixed asset, a depreciating asset, right? The other thing you can use it on too, and this is just a side note, is like the plans, you know, your master plans. That's another thing. But so how's it determined? Well, that's kind of the topic of this work session. So the process.
Can I interrupt you for a second?
Yeah.
Do you all understand what capital is? Is that clear?
I do.
Yes.
Okay.
I do have a question though. The split between the capital improving portion and the reimbursement portion, is that like a 50-50 split?
No, and we'll talk a little bit more about how that's calculated
Okay,
in just
thank
a little
you.
bit. Yeah, no problem. Okay, so no, it's not a 50-50 split. Could be, but the math plays that out, and I'll talk to you guys a little bit more about that.
Okay.
So the first step in the SDC fee development process is you develop your system master plan, which includes a capital plan, 10-year, 20-year plan, right? So you develop a capital plan. This talks about level of service standards, deficiencies in current system, facilities needed to serve future growth. So you develop that capital plan in the, your master plan, then develop the capital plan from that. Step 2, part of the master plan, list of projects, engineers' cost estimates, and proportion of projects related to growth. The third step is that you forecast population growth, housing units, jobs broken into units of demand. And finally, the fourth step is you allocate those costs, the cost to units of demand. Growth-related capital costs divided by forecasted new demand units equals SDC fee per unit. That's a simplification, right? But in essence, that's what you're doing is you're putting together a capital plan, you're determining what proportion of that's growth, you're looking at how much growth is expected, because obviously if you're saying, hey, there's $1,000 worth of capital here that's related to growth, and we're expected to grow by 1,000 people over this horizon, it's $1 per person, right? Whereas if you're expected to grow by 500, then you're looking at $2 per person, right? So that's kind of the, in a nutshell, how you look at that. So the determination in general, the master planning document for each system provides the formula for calculating SDC rates for that system. This is an overview of how SDCs are calculated in general. So your reimbursement SDCs are based on fixed assets, and getting even further into it, those are fixed assets that you're not receiving any payment on. So when a private developer has to come in and build a road in a subdivision, that doesn't count as a fixed asset towards the city's reimbursement fee because the city didn't pay the price for that road. The private developer did, okay? But when we put a pipe in the ground over on Molalla as a city project, now that is gonna be counted as a fixed asset because the city's paying for that out of its capital funds. Okay. So you determine the depreciated value, sorry, we're in reimbursement SDCs 1.1. Determine the depreciated value of existing capital infrastructure in a given system, water, transportation, et cetera. So when we close out a project, there's a lot of stuff that goes on behind the scenes. One of the things is that I produce a fixed asset sheet that says how much of those costs went to each system or were spent on each system, and then how much of those costs were ones that we didn't receive any reimbursement, whether it's by a grant or a private developer. So we reduce it by that amount, and that gives us the cost that goes into that fixed asset. That fixed asset then goes onto a depreciation schedule. Like anything else, when you're depreciating it in your taxes, for instance, your house is, every 27 years, so 1/27th per year if you're using it in a business enterprise, right? These are more like a 30 to 50 year capital lifespan, but there's basically a schedule of the depreciation, right? So you depreciate each year, so people aren't getting charged a reimbursement fee based on the original cost of the asset. They're getting charged based on the value of it after depreciation, right? So you determine the projected growth in the system demand over the planning period. Again, 10 to 20 years, depending on your master plan. Divide the depreciated value by projected growth, and this provides the per unit reimbursement charge for new or increased system impacts. So, does anyone have questions on that to start out with? Kind of a restatement of what I just said, so, okay. And the improvement SDC, this is based on the capital improvement plan and the adopted master plan. So there's a big difference there, right? One's based on fixed assets, the stuff that's already been built, the stuff that's already there. And this one is based on the plan, and the plan is based on growth and what you need to serve that growth, right? And you guys determine levels of service. So for sewer, it's pretty straightforward, the level of service. Everyone needs to have a toilet that flushes and, all that good stuff, right? The only place it gets kind of hairy is when you're looking at big industrial developments that are big categorical users of wastewater, different story. But if we're talking about just a house, that sort of thing, everyone needs a toilet that flushes. It's pretty easy to see what that is, as opposed to, for instance, your level of service on parks. You guys adjusted that down from 10, basically 10 acres per thousand to 7.5 acres per thousand. So you actually lowered the SDC, right? What the proposed SDC would be, because the level of service has gone down, and that's one of the bases for this, okay? So determine capacity increase provided by each capital project in the CIP. So some, like our wastewater treatment plant, it took us from the ability to have 10,500 people on the system to be able to have 15,900 on the system. So if you do that math, it's roughly 30% of that project, 33% of that project is SDC improvement eligible, okay? So we could use SDC improvement fees on up to 30% of that project if they're available. Then you determine the cost estimate for each capital project in the CIP, multiply the cost estimate for each project in the CIP by the percentage the project increases capacity. So if you take the wastewater treatment plant as example, let's call it 10 million. We know it's more than that, but I want to use round numbers. Okay, if we say, hey, this is a $10 million plant, and we know 30% of that plant is improvement eligible, now the number that we're using is 3 million, right? That's what it's telling you. So you're multiplying that 30% times 10 million to get to 3 million. Okay, so that's the portion that's improvement eligible, improvement fee eligible. Determine the projected growth in system demand over the planning period. Okay, so if we're looking at a 20-year planning period, we look at the population growth, we determine, okay, if we're saying, yeah, we're gonna get all the way to 15,000, so we're gonna have 30% growth, right? So you're saying, okay, you're gonna have 5,000
Excuse me, Matt.
additional folks.
Ladies, we're in the middle of a meeting. Can you keep the conversation down or step outside, please? Thank you. Go ahead, Matt.
Yeah, thank you. So you're gonna have 5,000, 5,000 more people coming on, $3 million, right? That basically would determine your per unit improvement charge for new increased system impacts if that wastewater treatment plant was the only thing in your capital plan. Does that make sense? So you take that 5,000, you take that 3 million that's SDC improvement eligible, divide it by 5,000, that gives you your per unit SDC. And in fact, we actually divide it by 5,000 divided by 2.8 first because it's 2.8 per unit, et cetera. But I didn't want to muddy the water too much there. So the practical application of SDC fee rate calculation. So reimbursement SDC's example, this isn't the practical application. I mislabeled it. The next one is. But this is kind of your equation. So you've got fixed assets in the system, less depreciation and assistance, divided by projected growth. So for instance, if you have total fixed assets in the water system of 1 million, and they've depreciated and or received assistance on the project of 500,000, and your projected growth in the system use is 1,000 meter in, so 1,000 additional units, right? So that'd be 2,800 people because we have 2.8 per unit. For residential, it gets a little different when you get into commercial industrial. Then this is what your equation looks like. And again, this is a simplification, but this does the work, right? So you take that $1 million of fixed assets, reduce it by the 500,000 in depreciation and assistance, which gives you 500,000 divided by 1,000, which gives you a $500 water reimbursement SDC per new 3/4 inch meter in. Okay. Same thing for, well, different thing, but the equation for improvement SDCs. So again, you see the equation, cost of water projects in the CIP times percent SDC eligibility for each divided by projected growth. So I use 3 projects here, one at 1 million, one at 500,000, and you can see what percentage they're SDC eligible, and that spits us out our numbers at the end. So we end up with 600,000 in SDC eligible costs, those growth, those capacity increasing costs that are the portion of those projects, right? You take that 600,000 and divide it by that 1,000 projected growth in the system use is 1,000 meter ins. 600,000 divided by 1,000, so you have a $600 water improvement SDC per new 3/4 inch meter.
Quick question, what is CIP?
Capital improvement plan.
Thank you.
So that's really the basis of it is these 2 equations, right? And obviously there's a little bit more to the numbers and whatnot, but this is the essence of how you get in your fees, how you come up with them. So determining SDC rates, it's a balancing act, okay? So as a general principle, you want the highest SDCs you can charge without chilling the new development that pays them, right? So that's why it's a balancing act. You want to have as much SDC as you can so that new growth in the community is paying its way fairly and you can improve your community and do all those things. But you can't improve your community and do all those things if it's so high that no one's going to build, right? And now there's been studies that have shown that if you're within the reasonable wickets of what SDCs ought to be, that it really doesn't have a significant impact, that you can go to a 0 SDC from one that's reasonable and based on reality, the way our capital plans are, and you don't really see exaggerated growth, which is an interesting concept, but just a good kind of anecdote, food for thought. So if they're too low, it's an injustice to the existing community. New development should pay their share for systems the existing community is already paid for. They're buying their share of ownership. 2, new development is the growth that triggers the need for expanded systems. They are paying their fair share of the cost that their presence produces. Now, if they're too high, it's an injustice to the existing community. New development provides new amenities and opportunities, updated properties, and increased property values, expanded tax base to enhance services and service levels. New development provides economies of scale to carry the burdens of systems maintenance and improvement, i.e. lower rates, opportunities for public and private partnership to increase the spending power of existing funds, and economies of scale to address system maintenance improvement. Sorry, it's a restatement. So how do we strike an appropriate balance? Engineering principles, system needs, combined with trial and error, taking the pulse. Adopting reasonable, attainable master planning documents with appropriate levels of service. And I want to really emphasize that one because, like Dan mentioned, in your proposed fee for parks, it's actually lower than what the proposed fee was back in 2016. Why is that? Well, you guys lowered the level of service to 7.5 acres per thousand instead of 10. That's one reason. So the level of service going down means there's less stuff we've got to build per person that moves in, right? The other reason is because we have a capital plan that's realistic. If you put the pie in the sky capital plan that Dan talked about into your plan, and it's something that you're really never going to accomplish in that time frame because it's a $3 billion capital plan, you're going to have a really high SDC. But the reality is, even if all that growth happened with that SDC, you'd never actually be able to accomplish it. You don't have the manpower. You know, you don't have the capacity to do it. So the goal of our capital plans, and one of the things I communicated to our consultant, is we want to provide attainable capital plans. We don't want to hand the council something that says, this is what we're going to attain for you over the next 20 years. Is this what you approve, or how do you want to modify it? And come away with something that's totally unattainable because it's so big and broad. Now you guys have, it's up to you, you know, when we hand you that plan to say, you know what, we want to add this, and this. But just remember when we're giving those to you, that we're trying to make it so that it's something attainable and realistic, so that the fee we're charging is not something to fleece new development, but to actually provide the service levels that the new development and that the town needs. All right. So I would caution when you're adding stuff, if it's a little thing here and there, great. But if it's, and especially with things like the parks plan, where it's more a matter of, it's less a matter of engineering principles and more a matter of opinion, really. You know, to look at it and say, hey, if you're going to add that, maybe think about taking this out. Because we're trying to do stuff that's actually attainable and keep this fee to where it's real. I would call it real. Is the reality. You know, when you have, let's just say you put, you know, we're going to develop Molalla Forest Road entirely to the TSP standard over the next 2 years. Yeah, it's a $25 million project. That's not going to happen. So the number that comes out at the tail end of that is not real. It's not a real number. It's just a big inflated number. And yeah, it allows us to do more things with the streets and allows us to do that stuff. But maybe it fails to strike that balance we talked about, right? So here's the customer perspective, and I kept this kind of short because I figured there'd be a lot of questions and I want to have time to get through them. But this one I think is really interesting. Now, what I didn't put on here is new development. I think new development is pretty straightforward. Residential is the only one that pays a parks SDC. Any and all new development, including residential, pays water, sewer, storm, and streets SDCs, right? So they pay that SDC fee. All of them pay that, and it's based on what size is your meter. That tells us what your water SDC is and what your sewer SDC is, right? How big is your building. If you're commercial, might have an impact on your transportation, but if you're a residential, single-family residence, you're paying, you're paying one trip, 1 p.m. peak hour trip, right? So at the end of the day, everyone understands that new development pays SDCs and only residential pays the parks portion. So how does it work with redevelopment? So Mr. X proposes to build a new 3,000 square foot hardware store where a single family house was located. So he must have gotten a property that was in the commercial zone that is still a house from 100 years ago, right? Mr. X must pay SDCs for water, wastewater, transportation, and storm. Why? He doesn't have to pay parks because he's building commercially. He's not building a new residence, he's building commercial, so commercial doesn't pay parks SDCs. So he needs to pay water, wastewater, transportation, and storm. But how much? Staff calculates Mr. X's SDC charge for each system based on his meter size. So how big of a meter is he requesting for his new build? That tells us water and sewer. His proposed use in square footage, that tells us transportation. We use the IT manual and that produces the number of PM peak hour trips, and it's a per trip charge. And impervious area, how much impervious area is he putting down? His roof, how much of his landscape is gonna be concrete or asphalt, those things that we have to be able to deal with that go into our stormwater system, right? If it's pervious ground, if it's dirt, he doesn't have to pay an SDC for that, okay? So we calculate all that up based on what you guys have given us, and then we reduce it by the SDCs for what was there. He gets a credit. Because there was a house there before, or something there before, he gets a credit equal to that. Credits are not done in dollars. They're done in the value of a trip or an EDU, right? So if you buy one EDU in 1913, you buy one trip because you built a house, and SDCs weren't around back then, just assuming they were in 1913, you bought a trip, you built a house, and you paid for 1 p.m. peak hour trip of transportation. You still get that credit even though you paid $2 in 1913 and today you'd pay $7,000. Doesn't matter. You've bought a trip. Whatever that costs, doesn't matter. That trip stays on that property forever. Whether
So
it
is it
cost you
credit?
$3 when you bought it or $10 when you bought it or $10,000. That trip stays there.
Okay.
Okay? Does that make sense?
Turns into a credit.
It's exactly. It's a credit, but not like in the kind of traditional sense of a monetary credit. It is a monetary credit by all means, but it is a trip, and whatever the cost of that is today is irrelevant. You get the trip, and that's it. So we don't even get to the point. So we're looking at it. Okay, this thing's going to produce 3.5 trips, PM peak hour trips. We're going to reduce it by 1 trip and say you owe 2.5 times SDC, right? So staff reduces Mr. X's SDC charge for each system equal to the SDC for a single family residence. These are the credits. I just talked about those being in terms of units. Mr. X pays the SDC charges and his building permit is approved. Mr. X's property now has a SDC credit for each system equal to his system impacts. He may use the property however zoning laws allow without paying SDCs unless his new use exceeds his property's credits. So if Mr. X decides that instead of a hardware store, he's going to turn that into a mini mart, and a hardware store is slated at 3.5. This is not real numbers, you guys, by the way. These are hypothetical. But a hardware store is 3.5 p.m. peak hour trips, and a mini mart is 6. Well, he's going to have to pay the difference between those. He's going to have to buy those extra 2.5 credits to get up to 6. Okay. So existing development increasing use, that's kind of what we just talked about. Mr. X later proposes to change his use of property to community. Wow, look at me. Looks like my mind is on one track. The change will increase his peak hour traffic trips from 0.99 per thousand to 4.18 per thousand square feet. Additionally, he wants to downsize his water meter from 1 inch to a 3/4. Mr. X is now required to pay the SDCs relevant to his new impacts. Staff calculates Mr. X's SDC charge for each system. Mr. X does not owe water or wastewater SDCs because his property already has a credit for a 1 inch meter. Additionally, he can increase his meter size back to 1 inch without paying SDCs. So he can go down, he doesn't have to pay. If he goes up, back up to where he was, he doesn't have to pay. If he goes to a 2 inch meter, now he's got to pay. Okay? Mr. X does owe transportation SDCs, but will receive a 0.99 per 1,000 square foot credit, which makes his new trip calculation 3.19 per 1,000 square feet. The single-family residence SDC is 1.0 total trips, so he receives the highest available SDC credit of 0.99 times 3 equals 2.97 total PM peak hour trips. So you can kind of see how new development is pretty straightforward. How much impervious ground is there? Did this lot have any credits on it? No? Okay, cool. Easy. We just calculate it up, figure out the numbers, do the math. When you get to redevelopment, it gets a little bit more confusing, but in essence, you buy your impacts, and only if you increase them do you have to buy more impacts, is a good way to think about it, right? So that's the end of my presentation. I think we kind of covered it in a nutshell, but I wanted to open it up to questions too. I wanted to leave plenty of time for those, because this is a very confusing topic, so.
Good.
Yeah, real quick, could you review for us where we get the trip calculations, for instance, the mini mart versus the hardware store?
So it's the ITE manual, so it's the International Traffic Engineers Manual, Institute. I don't know why I always say international. Institute of Traffic Engineers Manual, and it's pretty much it's considered the best practice. I mean, anywhere you go, you're basically going to see the IT manual as the basis for trip counts. PM peak hour is also very, very widely used, but note that this manual also accounts for certain things like you guys saw recently in the daycare, where the old manual said, hey, it's 12 trips for a daycare. Well, the new manual didn't necessarily say it's not 12 trips. It just said 8 of those are passed through, meaning people aren't going there. That's not their endpoint. That's not their destination. They're stopping there as a pass through and continuing on to a primary destination that's paid the cost for their trip, right? So they just said, okay, so that lowered it down to 4. So there's pass through. There's a whole bunch of stuff that they do to calculate all that out and spit out what they deem is a fair number. Now you guys do have, the ability to adopt the trip count you want to put on things, but that's a very, very involved process that would take many, many months of looking at all the different uses out there and making a determination. And so I really haven't seen that in any town our size, or really even twice our size. It's not until you get into a Portland, Vancouver type of scenario where you ever see that kind of thing, and I don't even think they have it, but don't quote me on that. So some cities do that, but it's pretty much, widely accepted and best practice to use the IT manual.
Counselor Childers?
And that ITE manual is used nationally.
Yes.
That's a big thing that comes down, and you have them for each category.
Yes, some categories aren't specifically or some uses aren't specifically listed in it, so you have to try to do your best to relate it to the closest one. Mm-hmm. And that's where a bit of the art comes in. But our policy has been based on your guys' feedback to provide them the lowest impact of the most similar uses, unless there's only one that makes any sense, then it's like, oh, okay, we don't have any options. But
Matt, could you repeat that one more time? The lowest impact is what council has directed.
that's right. So
Yeah.
what we do is we say, hey, there's not a bubblegum factory in the ITE manual. So we need to figure out what's the closest use to that. So we're gonna go look at the list of things that would be close to that, because maybe this one produces chewy stuff, and this one ships it all out, and this one, produces food. And so we look at all those, the ones that could reasonably be related to that use, and take the lowest impact out of all those, i.e. the lowest SDC fee out of all of them.
That's important, because we always get blamed for things being so expensive that we
Yeah.
vote things in, and, we do actually look out for the impacts toward the city. Just try-
I was gonna add, the ITE manual is updated every 2 to 3 years.
It's 2.
2 to 3 years or so. And so when we run into things like Mac's talking about, they need to catch up on new things that weren't here. Some of us remember when video stores showed up. That wasn't in the IT manual till later. Coffee kiosks. Believe it or not, there was a time when you couldn't drive into a coffee place. Nobody knew what to do with them. So those things, they catch up though. And like daycare centers, it's like, what do you do with a daycare center? And so it sounds like they've caught up on that a little bit too, so.
And I will add too that our staff is very good and is very sensitive to, we're the ones that have to deliver the message. And so when we're looking at a daycare and it's like, this is 12 trips, this is like $100,000 to start a daycare. If it's 1,000 square feet, like this is nuts. This doesn't even make sense.
No.
We start to dig and make sure we're digging and looking at, are there alternatives? What's going on here? And that's how we end up back in front of you guys with a specific daycare resolution saying, hey, we looked and we figured out, even the ITE folks figured this one out finally. So we also are very sensitive to paying, staying on top of that, paying attention, and seeing if there are significant kind of unfairnesses that are occurring, and for lack of a better term. I'm sure there's a whole bunch of better terms, but it just on its face is like, that just looks unfair. Another example might be you've got the strip mall next door here, right? And it's been up and running for a long time, and stuff comes in and out of these places. That's how it works. It's the nature of the beast. Well, instead of charging that as the individual use that it is, there's an actual code for strip malls, and it greatly reduces what the trip generation would be, because it's saying, hey, this isn't a strip mall, it's kind of set up for this, it's low square footage. So we try to find the most advantageous to the developer code that's available. Some of them are just the nail's just straight on the head. There's nothing, it is what it is. It's like a gas station's a gas station. I know a lot I can say about that. So.
Council have any more questions? Anything else you'd like to add, Mr. Corthell?
No, sir, unless you guys have questions. And if you think of some, you guys, this stuff takes a little while to germinate and digest. By all means, you know where to get a hold of me. You'll also be learning a lot more about this stuff from someone who knows more about it, or has probably forgotten more about it than everyone in this room knows. In 2 weeks, Steve Donovan is really exceptional. He's been doing this for many years, and he's actually getting ready to retire. He took us on as his last client, so he's been in the game for a long time. So he's a great person to ask questions to as well. He is an absolute wealth of knowledge. I learn something new from him every time I talk to him. So.
Yes, ma'am.
This is really a complicated and convoluted thing, and I think your presentation was put together very well to make it understandable. That's why you don't have any questions,
Thank you.
because it usually generates lots of questions in the past. Yeah.
Well, and if anybody's confused, the practical application as we go through parks and storm, it starts making more sense to you
Right.
once you see it in play. It's kind of like when we were learning math in school. They can explain it all day long until we started putting it down on paper and using it. It didn't make much sense. So give it time. It's going to get better.
Yeah.
And just the last thing I would say is I'm just going to repeat one of the things, 'cause I think it's really important when you guys are talking to members of the community to know that what these are is new development buying into stuff that they already paid for, right? They're buying into using their stuff, and that's really what it is someone's going to come in and use your stuff. So
They're gonna wear our stuff out a lot
Yeah.
quicker
Right.
if we
Right.
don't
The
keep
more
up
people we
with the
have.
upgrades.
Yeah. The only other thing I would add, and Max Wright tonight, was I gave you a little history of parks. We had a lesson on SDCs, and then just to give you some comfort as you're thinking about all of this stuff between now and when Mr. Donovan shows up, is the Westland Park SDC is 16,974.
Whoa. Wow.
Wilsonville's 14,056. And it kind of starts dropping a little bit from there. Ours is the proposed one that you're gonna see is 668, 61, so it's reasonable. So,
All right. Anything else? There's nothing further. I will adjourn this meeting at 5:53. Council for February 25th, 2026. Please join me in the flag salute. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. All right, I'd like to remind all participants, including staff, elected officials, and members of the public, that Robert's Rules of Order will be enforced in this meeting. We welcome your opinions and look forward to your polite participation. Audience members, we request that you silence your cell phones and not conduct side conversations during the meeting. Thank you. Up next, we'll do roll call, beginning with Councilor Basinius.
Counselor Basinius, present.
Counselor Bartholomew present.
Council President Vermillion present.
Mayor Kaiser present.
Counselor Childress present.
Counselor Schenkel present.
Counselor Gilmer, present.
Assistant City Manager Matt Cortell, present.
Planning Manager Dan Zender, present.
City Recorder Christy Teets, present.
And Dan Huff, City Manager, present.
All right, does staff or council have any changes to the agenda tonight? All right, up next, we'll do our consent agenda consisting of work session meeting minutes from February 11, 2026, and city council meeting minutes from February 11, 2026. May I have a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented?
I move to approve the consent agenda as presented.
Second.
Moved and second, any discussion? All right, Christie, will you call the roll?
Certainly. Counselor Gilmer.
Aye.
Counselor Schenkel.
Aye.
Counselor Childress.
Aye.
Council President Vermillion.
Aye.
Counselor Bartholomew.
Aye.
Counselor Basinius.
Aye.
Mayor Kaiser.
Aye.
Thank you. Vote passes 7-0.
All right, next, we will have public comment. Citizens are allowed for up to 3 minutes to present information relevant to the city, but not listed as an item on the agenda. Prior to speaking, citizens shall complete a comment form and deliver it to the city recorder. The city council does not generally engage in dialogue with those making comments, but may refer the issue to the city manager. Complaints should first be addressed at the department level prior to addressing the city council. And Ms. Patricia, would you like to come up and speak?
Mayor, I'm going to interrupt and let you know that we are asking for name and town of residence only moving forward.
Okay, so I will need your name and town of residence when you start speaking. And when that little box starts beeping in front of our city recorder, that means your time will be up and you'll be done.
Thank you.
Welcome.
I'm Patricia Torson, 1001 Bear Creek Drive, Molalla. And I'm here tonight to ask the city's help in providing housing for seniors. With all the building that the city wants to do and everything, we have nothing for the seniors. All that's available for them now is Twin First Trailer Court. That's a senior mobile home court. And we did have Culver Terrace, but that's been turned into for handicap and whoever. That was for Section 8 housing for seniors. We have a lot of low-income seniors in town that don't want to go to nursing homes. They don't want to go to assisted living. They're perfectly capable of getting around, but the finances are not there for them. They don't want to go live with the families and have the families support them. They want to do what they want to do, but they can't do it on the incomes at their level. Long time ago, the women didn't work, so the men provided the income, but their Social Security is divided between them. Look around you, there's a lot of you that are going to be on Social Security and in this position possibly. We're all getting older, and I'm blessed that I'm able to take care of myself and on my own, but there's so many out there that I hear from all the time that aren't. So I please ask you, do some affordable Section 8 housing for seniors. We need it desperately so that seniors can live on their own. We're living longer, we're living healthier, doing more, and we contribute to the city every way we can. So I appreciate any assistance you can give us on this. I work with the seniors all the time. try to do everything I can, and we have others that are doing the same. So, thank you very much.
Thank you, ma'am. All right, up next, we will have public hearing, resolution number 2026-07, repealing resolution number 2025-05, adopting the 2025 housing production strategy and adopting an updated housing production strategy. This item requires a public hearing. I'm opening this public hearing for resolution number 2026-07 at 6:08. The purpose of this hearing is to hear a staff report and listen to public testimony. Does any council member wish to acknowledge actual or potential conflicts of interest? All right, Mr. Zinder, we're ready for your staff report.
All right, Planning Manager Dan Zinder to present the staff report for Resolution 2026-07. I just want to make a quick point of clarification that in the notice that went out, it was referred to as an ordinance. This will be adopted by resolution, so I just want to make sure that that's cleared up before getting started. So yes, the staff report for Resolution 2026-07 to readopt the 2026 Housing Production Strategy and repeal 2025-05, which was the previous Housing Production Strategy, and replace it with this one. So of course our recommendation is to adopt it. I'll just give a little background and then pass it off to our consultant with 3J Consulting, Violet Brown. We hope to be establishing residency for here in town shortly. She's here often. And so Oregon House Bill 2003 requires that cities over 10,000 residents in Oregon adopt a housing production strategy that addresses housing deficits identified in the previously produced housing capacity analysis. Molalla adopted an HPS in 2025 with or Resolution 2025-05, which was remanded by the Oregon Department of Land Conservation, DLCD, in August of 2025. The city got DLCD funding in October of 2025 to retain 3J Consulting with us today and complete a revised HPS that addresses the comments in the remand letter, which is included as Exhibit C. The revised HPS document addresses DLCD documents from the remand letter, and a summary of these changes is provided as Exhibit B, and Violet will be discussing the changes that we made from the original, and then just between now and January to respond to comments. And then, staff recommends readoption of the final housing production strategies document, and upon readoption, staff will submit the final document to DLCD, opening their period of comment and review. Staff and 3J Consulting have worked closely with the DLCD review team through this revision process and integrated clerical recommendations from their team into the final document. So with that, I'll turn it over to Violet, and she'll tell you what's new about the document, and we can vote on it. Take it away, Violet.
All right, well, thank you guys. I just wanted to, as Dan said, I'm going to try to save your time a bit and just build on what we talked about last month when we were able to go through the draft HPS. We have been working in conjunction with DLCD very closely. And so, again, since last time we were here in January, there has been kind of public comment period where we met with our PAC. We also sent a copy of the January draft of the document to everyone who gave public comment on the last round back in 2025. And we did receive one letter in response to that, which we did incorporate some changes to the document. So the main thing is that I want to highlight is that we have the 4 conditions for the remand. Of those 4 conditions, the public comment that we received doesn't really speak to any of those 4. So the draft, so DLCD's first round of edits was the actual remand letter from August. The November draft that we did was based on their comments, these 4 conditions. DLCD then took another crack at the draft and gave us gave us very specific comments on the December draft. And then you guys saw the draft in January. So that already took into account
1000%.
kind of rounds from DLCD of feedback. Then again, the PAC commented on it, and then we got public comment from Fair Housing Council of Oregon in conjunction with Housing Land Advocates, and I'll talk about that in a second. So Dan, if you could go to the next slide, I've listed out a couple of the things that we did. So one of the wonderful things that we got back from our PAC is Clackamas County. We received some specific housing programs that were suggested to be called out in the draft, where we talk about the fact that we're going to be collaborating with Clackamas County around protecting people who may be facing eviction or facing houselessness, or any other programs that the county's running, so that we can kind of maximize those programs and make sure that they're getting a robust application for the city of Molalla. So we did change that. One of the main things we had to do is, obviously after January, we had to then summarize all of the public engagement that we did in January. So you didn't see that in the last draft, and I can point you to that starting on page 14. And then, as I mentioned, we did get a letter from Fair Housing Council of Oregon and Housing Land Advocates asking us to, something that they brought up last round as well, which was the desire to have some geospatial analysis, some mapping of vulnerability for gentrification. And that's something that was discussed briefly in the draft from 2025, and all of the ones that have happened since, where there's some research that points to mapping things like renters, poverty, people of color, land value, where you can try to say, okay, these are all indicators, and if you find pockets where all of those indicators are happening at one time, you can predict that that might be a community that would be vulnerable to gentrification and displacement. And what I had explained, and I think we've talked about it before here, was that unfortunately the census data for Molalla, you try to do that by block group or census tract, so that you can find actual neighborhoods and you're not just looking at the whole city of Molalla. The margin of error is so high that we found one block group that could possibly be a community that would be vulnerable under those standards. And when I looked at the data, it said there were 317 households reporting being Hispanic or Latino, and then it was plus or minus 365. And so the number could actually be 0. And so we discussed it with DLCD, we discussed it as a team. Just I didn't feel like it was really ethically appropriate to map something like that and say, here is a community of color, or here is your pocket of poverty, when the numbers might actually be 0, according to the data. So we just, instead on page 48 and 49, I explained that more in detail, gave the actual numbers so people know that this is not a hesitancy on the part of Molalla to ignore these communities or ignore the impact of redevelopment on vulnerable communities, but just a desire to do it accurately and not give false information. So what the report now says is that we'll just have to use kind of, instead of, some combination of quantitative and qualitative information, and when development applications come in, there's no way of getting around just looking at what is the impact of this development. Are people going to be displaced? Is there naturally occurring affordable housing that's going to go away once this development happens? And according to the HPS, what would happen is that would trigger some collaboration with the county and some programs for people who are being displaced. So that's something different, and that's the way that we address some of the comments that we received during the public comment phase of this process. I have a couple of slides where I show you what the one-pager was for last time. Each of the strategies has a one-pager, and there is some difference in the way it was handled in the new draft. Mainly, it was a confusion around timeframes, and if it says 1 to 2 years, is that 1 to 2 years from now, or is it running for 1 to 2 years? We decided to just put actual years. So it used to say 1 to 2 years. The next slide will show that the new draft just says that this is going to be adopted in, say, 2025. It's going 2026. It's going to be implemented in 2027, and we're expecting an impact on available housing or impact on the housing market in a different year. So we're actually just using years instead of ranges. So that was a thing to just make sure that everybody who's reading this document is thinking of those numbers in the same way. That's the only main change for those one-pagers. And then the other change is we were encouraged by DLCD to think critically about our implementation. One of the things that they wanted in the remand was a more kind of aggressive implementation, having some of the things start happening right away. And maybe they were curious if maybe we went too far in the other direction and had a lot of stuff happening right away, and whether that was realistic with staff capacity. So we took another look at it since the January draft that you saw. And if you go to the next slide, I'll show you the two that we ended up kind of pushing out were the modifying the requirements for ground floor commercial and addressing impediments to home ownership. We were told that it was okay to have some that are some of our strategies not be implemented until after the 4-year halfway mark, and that we should just be as careful as possible to make sure that what we're saying is going to happen is realistic. And so we changed that. Yes.
Yeah, I was just going to jump in on sort of the reasoning for pushing those back, for modifying the ground floor commercial requirement. You know, currently in commercial zones, you're required to, there's not an allowance for residential units on the bottom floor for residential in commercial zones. And so the reasoning for that is that we can get around that with a variance. So currently, if applicant submits a variance, we can look at other forms of development. So we thought that sort of didn't, of the things that we could choose, that would maybe not take precedent. And then with addressing impediments to home ownership, there's sort of a logical connection that we do things like develop standards for cottage clusters, reduce our ADU SDCs, and then once we're there, we start to look at other strategies that we can take once we do sort of things that are out there. So that was our thinking behind that. Back to you.
Yeah, and you'll also notice a hideous little eye appearing all over the graph there, and that's because we couldn't get out of trying to figure out a way to incorporate our expectation for when we would see an impact on housing. And so if you're kind of thinking, why are some of them a little bit further out and some are having an impact right away? Our thinking there was that some of the things that are very technical and specific to development, like standards for cottage cluster or duplex parking, our feeling is that the developers are really looking for that. And if you make that change, that's something that could really start to immediately have an impact on the number of units being developed. Whereas other things like revising the code around ADUs, homeowners are not as, they're not checking every month to say what does the code say about this. So it may take a little bit longer for that impact to happen. And so that's what we did. And again, DLCD then took the January draft that you guys saw, gave us a third round of specific comments and things to address, and this is one of the things that came out of that. They wanted to see that impact incorporated somewhere here on this document and on this table, and so we added it. And that's really all I have in terms of changes that we've made since the January version that you guys saw, and I'll open it for any questions or any concerns. I do think this draft did change some of the things that I heard last time in terms of identifying that photo on the cover, making sure that it was clear what it was, and then also making sure I had the staff and the role and the planning commission and city council members all accurate and up to date, not based on the 2025 roster there. So I think we've incorporated everything that we've heard to the best of our ability, and we're really proud of it. So any questions from the council?
Hey, Violet, this is Mayor Kaiser. Dan, can we go back to that last page?
There we are.
On one of them, it says remove impediments to duplex parking. Are we looking at changing kind of our city way of how many parking spaces are allowed per unit, or, you know, per housing, or per duplex, or ADUs? Is that something that the state's looking at us changing, or are we able to keep our parking values intact?
Didn't quite hear all of that. Dan, do you
So
have
it's-
a reaction to that, or do you want me to?
Oh, go ahead, Mac. if you
Yeah,
want, if you like.
so in 2027, what we need to do is look at it and study it, and figure out what the best course of action is. So that may mean that things end up, you know, staying the same, but we need to take a look at it, study it, that's what they're kind of mandating. And so we'll have to look at that. One of the big things that's gonna impact that is the availability of mass transit here. So, you know, a reduction in an area like maybe Canby, where TriMet, you know, runs nonstop, as opposed to Molalla, might look a little bit different. So the study, the 2027 would be the time at which we studied that. And then looking at what modifications could be made would be kind of in 2028, or if any. So that's,
But we're not looking at a forced change as of right now?
no, it'll be something you guys look at and work on and make a determination on. And nothing here can pass without you guys voting it in.
But things can change without us voting. We could be told we have to go to a certain standard, and that's my concern, is I don't want, we have other cities to the north of us that are building apartment complexes with absolutely no parking, and they do have mass transit. So to me, it's kind of a double-edged sword, because you have everybody parking on the street, filling up the streets, and then you have more buses going down the streets. People that actually have cars have no room to even move down there. And so I'm just looking ahead at, you know, hopefully we don't have that forced option by our state telling us we have to do something like that.
There isn't anything right now that forces it. I mean, it would have to be state law, but we do need to take a look at it in 2027 and study it and figure out what's best. And then we'll also have to work with DLCD on those discussions to figure out what the best course of action is. So, yeah, there's nothing today, but who knows what legislation could come out tomorrow.
Well, and I'd like to add, just Mayor, now I feel like I've caught up and I could hear enough of the conversation. This particular one is looking at duplex. So it's talking about, are there impediments, are there parking requirements that making it kind of unnecessarily difficult for people to do a conversion into a duplex? And so it's not necessarily talking about apartment complexes, but it's looking at making sure that people who want to take, say, a single family and turn it into a duplex, that there aren't sort of onerous parking requirements that, you know, that existing driveway or whatever should be fine for a duplex, and we're not requiring them to add a bunch of additional parking that makes that duplex impossible to build. So that was this one is about, again, and Mac is absolutely right. This is, you'll see the yellow says evaluate, and then you would have an ordinance in front of you to consider and when this actually gets implemented. But yeah, this one's looking at conversions. We're trying to make conversions into duplexes more streamlined and easier and affordable for people who want to do that.
Okay.
It's not an across the board look at your parking.
And I'll add to that too is, and I forget the exact word for it, but through these, climate-friendly zones, and Molalla is not at this point part of it, so it's not connected with that effort, which is where the zero parking requirements come from. So this is sort of a study we do on our own accord.
Perfect, thank you.
Yeah, and it's designed to encourage people to have those smaller units, more in line, like a duplex is, in my mind, more in line with, say, cottage clusters or something that's like a very residential neighborhood where you're just taking one unit and making two out of it, similar to like building an ADU. And we just want to make sure that our parking requirements are logical, right? So you're just going to look at it, make some decisions about what you think makes the most sense in terms of what to require for parking, and we're not making them build a bunch of parking that nobody needs. And we're letting them do that conversion.
Perfect, thank you, ma'am. Councilor Childress.
Did we receive a copy of this updated housing production strategy document as counselors. We did?
Yeah.
Isn't that what's in the packet?
It's in the package?
Yeah.
It's Exhibit A, yeah.
Yeah, it's right
It's
here.
Exhibit A, thank you, I didn't see that.
Anybody else? Wow, okay. Anything else you'd like to add, Mr. Corthell?
No, Mayor, I see Counselor Childress digging in now. I think really that table that Mr. Zender has up on the TV right now is really the nuts and bolts of this thing. There's a whole bunch of gobbledygook around it, but this is really, this is
100%.
what's going on. So just.
Again, it may be confusing because it looks a whole hell of a lot like the one you saw in January, except the fact that, as Max said, that table's been changed so that there are two things that are pushed out a little bit further than what you saw in January. And there's that section that we added where we just summarized all the activities that the team did in January as part of our engagement. So we had to kind of put the cap on this to say, you know, here's a summary of everything we did as our engagement. Since we got that green light to say, hey, we can actually be a little bit more careful with not overburdening staff with implementing everything right away, we were able to move a couple of those things a little further out. But there's no change to any of the strategies. They're all the same, and the analysis is really all the same,
All right.
which was a relief.
Anybody have anything else? All right. You're good. All right, public comment for this item is now open. Is there anyone that would like to speak in favor or opposition? All right, no one wanting to speak. I will close this public hearing at 6:29. Thank you, Violet. Are you sticking around or? You're muted.
I'll stick around.
All right,
I told you I'm getting fear of missing out. I'm supposed to be at these meetings.
excellent. All right, up next,
for the vote,
ordinances and resolutions. Resolution number 2026-07, repealing resolution number 2025-05, adopting the 2025 housing production strategy and adopting an updated housing production strategy. Mr. Zender, do you have anything else you'd like to add?
Not at this time.
Ms. Corthell?
No, sir, thank you.
All right, having held a public hearing for this resolution, we are ready to consider a motion for approval. Is there a motion to adopt resolution number 2026-07, repealing resolution number 2025-05, adopting the 2025 housing production strategy and adopting an updated housing production strategy?
I move to adopt resolution number 2026-07, repealing the resolution number 2025-05, adopting the 2025 housing production strategy and adopting an updated housing production strategy by title only.
Second.
Council President Vermillion made the motion. Councilor Basinius seconded. Is there any questions or discussion? All right, Christie, will you call the roll?
Certainly. Counselor Gilmer.
Aye.
Counselor Schenkel.
Aye.
Counselor Childress.
Aye.
Council President Vermillion.
Aye.
Counselor Bartholomew.
Aye.
Counselor Bicenius.
Aye.
Mayor Kaiser.
Aye.
Thank you. Vote passes 7-0.
All right, up next, resolution number 2026-05, initiating street vacation proceedings for a portion of Hezzy Lane. Ms. Corthell, it's all yours.
Thank you, Mayor, and good evening, council. So yeah, this resolution would initiate the process to begin the vacation process for that chunk of Hezzy Lane that currently bisects the middle school and elementary school property. As you guys know, this was part of the agreement for the exchange of Fox Park property. And you guys can do this, of course, on your own motion here. And like I said, there is an opportunity for folks to speak on this more as we move down the road. This just initiates the process. Basically, this is you guys telling staff to start doing the work.
And planning commission's recommendation?
Planning Commission recommended to proceed.
Perfect. All right. Is there a motion to adopt resolution number 2026-05, initiating street vacation proceedings for a portion of Hezzy Lane by title only?
May I ask a question, Mr. Kaiser?
Yeah.
Would it be a potential conflict of interest if I live on Hezzy Lane?
Ms. Corthell?
It's probably better if you don't
That's
participate,
kind of what I thought.
just because you live there.
Yeah.
I don't think
It's safer than sorry.
That was kind of why I
that's-
wanted to bring it up, so.
you probably don't have any kind of conflict at all, but it's probably best.
Okay. Cool. I don't know what I need to say from there.
You'll abstain from
Just-
voting.
I'll abstain from
Counselor.
voting on this
Correct.
matter.
When the city recorder calls you, just say abstain.
Thank you.
Perfect. All right, I'll entertain a motion.
I think, Mayor,
Sir?
I'm sorry, I missed one point I wanted to make that wasn't
Okay.
in the staff report here. So I did want to point out, and this is mostly for the audience and the folks watching at home, because you guys already know about this, that the council did prioritize the development of Ona Way into the Bear Creek neighborhood, as well as Molalla Forest Road, the portion that leads down to Yelkus Park. We have begun the design process on both of those roads. And so that will move the traffic out of the Bear Creek neighborhood, the park traffic. We will gate that off. It will still be available for emergency access for the fire department and pedestrian traffic, of course. And then of course, Ona Way Street will be fully developed and connected to 13. So I did want to point those two things out. I think they're important for the community to hear.
Perfect. Thank you, sir. All right, council, I'll entertain a motion.
I move the Molalla City Council to adopt resolution 2026-05, a resolution of the City of Molalla, Oregon, initiating street vacation proceedings for a portion of Hezzy Lane.
A second.
It's been moved and second. Is there any other questions or discussion? All right, Christie, will you call the roll?
Counselor Gilmer,
Aye.
Counselor Schenkel,
Aye.
Counselor Childress,
Aye.
Council President Vermillion,
Aye.
Counselor Bartholomew,
Aye.
Counselor Bicenius.
I abstain.
State your reason, please.
Potential conflict of interest as I live on Hezzy Lane.
Thank you. Vote passes 6-0 with
Ma'am,
one
You
abstention.
did not call for my vote.
Oh, Mayor Kaiser,
Aye.
thanks.
We assume.
She knew you were gonna
I
say
just got so
that,
excited.
apparently.
Thank you. So to restate the vote, it is 6-0 with one abstention.
Thank you.
Thank you.
All right, up next, Molalla Police Department Community Room Use Policy. Mr. Huff, it's all yours.
yeah, if you, Mayor and Council, if you refer to your packet, there's a short staff report and then a suggested policy for use of the community room at the new police station. And what I would like to start with is that we have always had every intention of opening that room up for the community to use. Where we're at today is it's a little bit difficult right now. I know that because we're still, it's kind of like moving into a new house. It's taken us a little bit of time to get used to where all the boxes are and where the boxes go, and the city recorder and deputy city recorder and I were over at the police station today getting a lesson on how to use all of the AV equipment. Okay. And right now, I think over at the police station, we have one person that probably knows how to do it. If you ask the chief, he'll tell you he knows how, but, Anyway, what we've come up with is a initial policy, a draft policy that kind of incorporates some things that some other communities have done. It's even got some things that we already use at the library, kind of incorporated in there. And what we'd like to do at a staff level is obviously have you all take a look at it, tell us any questions you have, some what, whens, and whys on some things. And in the future, I guess the thing that's really concerning us at this point is the after-hour use, because we don't have any staff members there. And I think we're going to figure out how to make that happen. okay? And, but right now, we're down a few people, over there and at City Hall and at the Civic Center. So we're, what we'd like to do is have an initial policy that if you're a member of the public, not like one of us, or like we have C4 coming next week, that's obviously after hours, but we're gonna have a bunch of staff there. And same thing with the grand opening was another example. We had a bunch of staff there. And so we'd like to start off with a policy that if you want to use it, you can during work hours, because we can't rely on a police officer as a staff member to be present after hours. I mean, they're there, but we don't know if they're there. They may be out somewhere else. And then as we get into this building, get a little better used to how to use it and things, we still don't have all the equipment there either. So that's one of the other problems. Then we'd like to revisit the policy, maybe expand it a little bit after we get our feet wet on the building a little bit. So anyway, I'll be quiet, and if you have any questions, and then what we'd like to do is maybe bring it back at your next meeting with any comments you have or changes you'd like to make, and then have you adopt it at your next council meeting.
All right, does council have any questions, suggestions, ideas? Yes, sir.
I have a question. Do we feel that the $75 refundable deposit would cover necessary cleaning costs if somebody were to leave it in disarray? Do we feel like that's adequate to cover what it would cost us to clean it?
I know that our police department asked the folks that are cleaning the building, and that's kind of where they came up with a number. You get it back if you don't do anything
Right.
outrageous. It's hard for me to think of someone using a room like that at a police station to, do something odd, but it's a good question. And if you want to raise that, you can. I think you told me what the school district charges. What was that?
That was was it 75 an hour for the elementary school gym? Is that what
Something like that, yeah,
Per hour.
per hour,
because they have to have staff there
present.
present
Yes.
on the property.
Yeah. Well, and they already have staff there that are available if something happens.
Right.
So, I mean, that's something we could raise. The refundable fee.
One thing I'd like to add to this is, and it's gonna sound really weird, no use of glitter.
No, that's a very,
And-
very
agree.
good,
And
yeah.
the reason why is I've seen churches that use glitter instead of rice or whatever, and trying to clean that up from the carpet is an absolute nightmare.
Sir, I think along those lines, glitter or confetti.
Right.
Confetti can be very small, like glitter as well. We could certainly add that.
Yeah.
Um,
Yes, ma'am.
I think I'm reading this right. So it's $75, but I see down here just above the cancellation policy, it says the requesting groups 3, 4, 5, and 6 shall submit a check or card in person for $50. So shouldn't that be 75 for the cleaning deposit?
What page are you on, please?
Yes.
Yeah, I
Does
see
it
Well-
have a page number?
Page 2.
Doesn't have a,
Well,
Page 2, the second page.
yeah, second page.
Okay.
It's that first, well, it's the second
Oh, there, I
little
see it.
tiny thing there, yeah.
Mhm.
Shouldn't that say 75? Yeah, okay.
That might have been one we didn't change. Are you taking notes?
I actually caught something. I never catch anything.
You're on top.
Good point. Okay.
Any other questions or comments?
I feel like that $75 is too low. I just don't feel like that would be adequate. In the cost of goods these days, you break a chair on accident, things happen, a table, You know, you have excessive cleaning. $75 doesn't go very far. You know, the idea, obviously, we don't need to collect a massive ransom for the room, but we don't want to be out costs. You know, general wear and tear things do happen. I think that number is a little bit too low when most everybody will get that money back.
The problem, it's, to me, raising it much higher than it is now, is kind of like our SDCs. We want to keep the price palatable so that the community does not feel like it's priced for them not to use it for their events. Personally, like Mr. Huff said, this is kind of a starter, what we approve next month. We're gonna be bringing this back, and I think if we're gonna look at raising the price, I'd be more apt to looking at raising the price down the road than right now, just to see if there is an issue or something does happen, because maybe nothing does happen, it's used, people are happy about it. I don't wanna raise the price too high, because there is a lot of stakeholders, 10,300 stakeholders that helped us get this building put in place, and pricing it much above that, I think, is gonna become a negative, on us, per se.
Would it make sense to have a clause for damage that, and if it's in excess of the $75, that it will be billable to said party?
That would be very
Maybe
fair.
add something like that.
Yeah, that would be, I think that would be a lot more palatable.
Yeah, I'm fine with the $75 at that point. That totally makes sense. I just worry of damage in excess, and that just covers you on a very limited basis. So.
See recorded?
That is listed in the indemnity
It is?
indemnity agreement. Users assume all responsibility and entire liability for losses, damages, costs, and expenses. So we are covering ourselves when it comes to damages.
That was one I added.
I didn't see that. Thank you.
Yeah,
Certainly.
yeah, they've got it already in there.
Yes, ma'am.
And by the same token, with what you were saying about, going to the community and what we're charging, this is just a deposit. 9 times out of 10, in places that I've reserved in the past, you write them a check and they check it the next day, and you go and pick up your check. They don't even deposit it. So it is just a deposit, and I would be hesitant to come up with something now and 2 months down the road, 3 months down the road, decide we need an increase. So I tend to fall more with Councilor Basinius on maybe raising that to $100. I don't think that's, it's just a deposit, like I said, and it's probably gonna cost, I'm glad that you went to our cleaners to get at least an idea of what it would cost. But a real mess in there could end up costing us more than $75 to clean up, and it wouldn't be covered. So I would
Wouldn't it be covered in that indemnity?
Not necessarily.
not cleaning.
Yeah, you could leave a mess without doing any damage.
Right,
Mhm.
right.
The intention, of course, of a community use policy is encouraging folks to leave it better than you found it.
Yes.
Right.
We delivered it to you clean and sparkly, and we would like it back clean and sparkly.
Without glitter.
Mhm.
Anybody else?
So what I've heard, just a review, I've heard no confetti, no glitter, or such. I don't know, maybe there's something else that, or
Rice.
Rice.
similar.
I would add rice.
Sand,
I mean,
yeah, anything like
Rice and
that.
birdseed.
And
Birds, there
I'm- and I'm not sure I've got a concurrence on the fee. Heard a couple of you say raise it, others are contemplating. What do you want the fee to be?
I'm good with 75.
I am too,
I'm good with 75.
I'm good with 75.
That's fine.
yeah.
Okay. So we'll add those things, and bring it back at your next meeting so you can adopt it.
The other thing, council, is if you get into reading this more after tonight,
Let me know.
within the next week, you see some changes, get
Yeah.
a hold of staff.
Yeah, let me know.
Yes, ma'am.
Has the application, or will the application be an online fillable form?
Yes.
Okay,
Absolutely.
Okay.
Yep. That's just the screen print of what it looks like, but
That's the example of what it would look like once it
when
would
you
go
pull it
live
up
on
on
the
the screen,
website.
but it's being developed as an online application.
Okay. Application.
Anybody else? All right. Moving on. Oops, sorry, microphone. Staff communication. Mr. Zinder's already out of here. Ms. Corthell, you got anything to report tonight?
Yes, sir. So we got approved for a $43,000 grant to do the banner holder project that we talked about. So that's fun. We'll go learn about that the grant a little bit more next week, and then get the project kicked off. Yeah, that's kind of the main one. Oh, the other thing I did learn that I think is important is the $1,092,000 grant that we got for the water intake is not one of the ones that's hung up in the DHS funding bill. Ours is approved and good to go.
Done.
So
Great.
we're just waiting for them to get to us in whatever process they go through to get to us. But it's approved, ready to go, and so it's a real positive. And then we submitted today for additional federal funding to do to put the cover, some of the things we pulled out of the wastewater project during value engineering, to put the cover back over the UV filter, or the filters and UV system out there, which will also help us lower the temperature of the water going into the river, which helps with our TMDL, helps us meet our permit, and obviously greatly reduces environmental impacts on the river. So hopefully we get that one too, and we can push forward with that.
Anything else, sir?
That's it.
Quick question. I believe we applied for a grant for an arch banner system.
That's what he just,
Oh, that's what was
That's the
approved?
one,
We just
yes.
got.
Okay, I thought you were talking about the new banners that we had to put
Oh,
up
yeah.
on the poles.
No.
Okay,
So over
okay.
the street.
Yeah,
Okay.
this is gonna go.
So
up
that was
over
the T-Mobile grant?
No, that's actually Mount Hood Territory, our travel partners at Clackamas County.
Okay.
Approved that.
So now that will go into some sort of design, and we're gonna be are we putting out something to have it installed, or is it under dollar amounts and you guys just handle it? What's the process?
They basically, I mean, when we apply, we tell them about the whole project and all that good stuff. And then when they approve it, we'll just start the process like any project. I have to go learn about their grant process next week in their orientation, because each grant's a little bit different.
Okay.
So yeah, I'll go and learn about that next week, and then we'll kick that project off.
Yes, ma'am.
And the design has basically already been approved. The side hoist system is basic, coming from an artist, however, Ben Dye, who did develop this system. There will be some art work on the tops that we can put up, and the Arts and Culture Committee will review those and come up with something for presentation to the council. Is that the correct process, Mr. Huff? Yes, thank you.
Okay. The only thing I'd like to make sure of is whatever art goes on one, it's consistent on the other. It's not.
Oh, no, what? No, I'm kidding you.
I could just see somebody, oh, let's make it different.
Well, they have done like an eagle on one side and a salmon on another, or, you know, I
Oh,
mean,
well-
Well,
it
and
depends on.
that would be,
Yeah.
I mean, you're in the same genre there.
Yeah.
That's handleable.
We could put a big O on one side and.
And a beaver on the other?
No.
Now you're getting carried away, Mr. Huff.
Calm down, guys.
I'm confident that the committee will bring you something
Yeah.
that you will appreciate.
All right. City Recorder Teets.
Oh, good evening, Mayor and Council. I have so many things for you this evening. I had to write myself notes. So first, of course, the C4 meeting is going to be held next week, next Thursday. And I have created a notice of council quorum, so you can all show up and we won't be in trouble. That will be great. I wanted to let you know the spring cleanup flyer is at your seat this evening for your review, and I'll take edits to my email, please. And so if there are any concerns about the date, time information, just send me your edits and we'll get those taken care of. Deputy City Recorder Crystal Robles is going to make her debut at Planning Commission next week.
Yay.
Moving forward, City Recorder's Office is going to cover both council and commission meetings. So we're going to start seeing a little more of our Deputy City Recorder running meetings. So very excited about that. We have a recent fishing expedition going on through the city, and by fishing, I mean PHISHING. I have to bring that to all of your attention because you do use our email address, so please just be extra vigilant. If something looks, if it has the sniff test, if it smells fishy, it probably stinks, and you want to let me know or let Molalla Communications know. We are under pretty prominent attack right now, and MCC is working very closely with us. So we just ask that you be vigilant in your opening or not opening from
And
folks
one
that you
thing,
don't
council,
know.
if somebody sends you an email, council to council, pick up the phone and call before you
Yes.
open it, just to make sure. It's real simple.
It's great
I
advice.
get, believe it or not, I get emails from you guys fairly often. And I know you're not sending them. And so,
Can you meet me down the road? and-
yeah,
Yeah.
I have an emergency.
I have an emergency,
And I'm in a
yeah,
meeting.
and I'm in
Yeah.
a meeting and I can't
Yeah.
talk right
Yeah,
now.
you know, so if
All the
you
time
see an
from him.
email from one of us, pick up the phone and call before you open it, because once you open it, the system is open. It just gave them the open gateway to everything we got.
It's true. We use the same advice internally. Pick up the phone.
Well, you mentioned this, the pay scam that's going on too. I think we mentioned it last time, but I think it could use another one.
Go ahead.
Okay,
Right.
yeah, so if you're making a payment to the city, there's only two ways to do it. Calling the city or coming in person, and it'll be a credit card or check. Or do we have?
We have
for bill
Express.
pay,
No, you have
we have bill pay too.
Yeah,
So
you
we
have
have
bill pay.
express bill pay, but you're gonna be going to that website on your own. We've had a couple of people, and good for them that they called and asked. They got very official looking documents asking for wire transfers for stuff that's going on in the city, and they brought it in, and I mean they've taken the city logo, and I mean they're dressing it all up. So spread the word. Just give us a call if nothing else. When in doubt, give us a buzz, and we'll let you know if it's real or not. Because they're getting to the point where I was literally questioning. I was like, did one of us send this? I mean, they look really realistic, so be very, very careful about those. We'll never request a wire transfer from you. That's one really important thing to know.
And wasn't it developers that were getting hit?
It was
Yeah.
multiple times.
So thank you for your attention to that. And then we do have our commission and committee vacancies. Budget committee, I wanted to let you know we have 2 openings now. Our longtime budget chair and former counselor Liz Klein is unavailable to serve this year, so her seat is open. On budget committee, and then of course planning commission, there is an opening. Both of those vacancies are for folks that reside within Molalla city limits. And I'm your gal. Get a hold of me if you have any interest. I'd be the one to be able to help you with that. And then my final announcement is that the city manager and I have made it through a half week. We have 2 more week or another week and a half to go without the executive assistant, and we seem to be managing. I haven't gotten fired
Not yet.
so that's this is the longest time I've been his executive assistant since I was his executive assistant that I haven't been fired. So we're doing all right.
I'm impressed you haven't fired him.
That happens periodically.
Councilor Childers, you had your hand up.
Yes, I did. I was curious, you said to contact, on these phishing emails, et cetera, to contact you and Molalla Communications?
Either. Yeah,
Either.
I'm happy to help, or you can go directly to Molalla Communications.
And who do we go to at Molalla Communications?
If you received something at your personal email, you would want to direct it to the IT request. So kind of like when you are asking for a password reset, it would be that same request. Or the easy button is just send it to me and I'll take care of it for you.
That does sound easier, because I don't know who to send an email to at MCC.
They have a general IT request email that
I
goes
see.
to several people at MCC. It's like 3 or 4 folks that monitor it, but you're welcome to just send it to me and I'll pass it on.
Okay.
Yeah.
And don't forward the email to Christie, just send her an email.
It's fine if you forward it, as long as you don't open any of the links before you forward it to me.
Okay.
That was one thing I wanted to clear up.
Yeah.
Just opening the email doesn't open
Correct.
the worm or whatever is going on. You have
That's-
to click on one of the
Yes.
links
Or an
within the
attachment.
email.
Yes.
Yes, or the
Okay.
attachment.
It's when they, yeah, you don't want to click on the go here.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Just quick follow-up question. Do we, in our system we use, do we not have the ability to send the phishing, click on the little phishing icon and have it report? Okay, that's what I was thinking too, because that would be the
Yeah.
other
You
good
do.
way to do it.
Yeah,
Yeah.
certainly.
Christie, one question.
Yeah.
With the budget committee seats that are open, we had a pretty large crowd that applied for our council seat last year. And I know you're slammed. Would we be able to send them an email asking if any of them would be interested that applied for the council seat? Say, we recognize you applied for council. We have these budget seats that are open, planning commission seats that are open. Maybe they would be interested in applying for that? Just a thought.
I'm happy to reach out to them. A few of the folks that applied for that council seat are currently serving on our budget committee, so they are in the middle of a term right now, and we picked one up. So
Right.
I might have 1 or 2, but I'm happy to reach out to them.
Okay, just an idea.
Mm.
Mr. Huff?
Just a couple of things. To let you know that we did receive our payment from Clackamas County for the pilot program. And I got a hold of the fire department and told them they would be receiving a check from us for their share of that money. And it wasn't about the amount, it was really about the principle. And I appreciate that Clackamas County recognized that principle, and they did forward those funds. So we do have them, and a lot of that had to do with, we just kind of kept at it, and Mayor went up and talked to the commission, and Diana Helm, is that right?
Commissioner
Okay,
Helm.
I haven't met her in person yet. Was instrumental in making that happen. So if you, I don't know who comes to the C4 meetings.
Commissioner Helm and Commissioner Savas.
Okay, so if any of you were there, you can raise it. So, anyway, that, and the second thing is that we are down a number of people at City Hall. And when I say City Hall, I'm including the Civic Center in that City Hall issue. So be patient there. We do have a position open, and are you up to 14 applicants in less than a week?
In like 2 days.
Okay.
Yeah, so we've already got meetings or interviews scheduled.
Yeah, so that's good news. We do have a number of issues in our, that we're trying to catch up on in other parts of the city, so just be patient. We usually get really good applicants here, and that'll be the same way, so.
How are we with our compliance officer position? They're online.
In background.
Background, okay. Still, okay.
They're doing the full meal deal background, the full police background, so it's taking a little bit longer than historically because that position is now on the CCPOA contract, and it hadn't been before, so they're treating it roughly
Okay.
the same for the hiring process.
Do we have a time frame?
I'd have to ask Chief on that one, but I know she's been in background for a couple of weeks, and I don't know what their normal turnaround time is, but
Okay. All right,
There you go. That's all I have.
all right.
Should be a fun night next Thursday.
How many are coming to that? 1, 2, 3, 4. All right. Right on. Excellent. You coming, Christy?
Yes.
Right on. Hey.
I'll be your PowerPoint driver. While you're speaking, I'll be scrolling.
Thank you.
So, yeah, and I'm the Vanna White for you and Matt.
Councilor Basinius, anything to report tonight?
I do. Counselor Gilmer and I attended the library board meeting last night. It was very nice to meet all the people participating in that great organization. A couple takeaways that I have. No late fees. That started in the fall. We talked about the logic of that and trying to make books accessible for everybody. And I thought that was just a wonderful thing. You still have to pay if you lose or damage a book, which makes sense, of course, but trying to keep that no late fees out, I think, was wonderful. The entire library system is starting a library trail. So they have a neat little, kind of like the McMinimans passport. So you go and you check out all of the different libraries in Clackamas County. You get a stamp, and then there are some prizes that you can win and some different things. So just some wonderful opportunities to support other libraries and check out, what's around our community. And then the last one I have is Claire's book drive for 2026. We were discussed that at the meeting. That runs now through March 10th. You can find more information on Molalla Now and other local Facebook groups.
Perfect. Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
Councilor Bartholomew.
I have nothing to report, Mayor Kaiser.
All right, thank you. Councilor Gilmer.
Yeah, like Councilor Basinius, I was at their meeting at library. They're doing a great job, very well run. Those folks are on the ball. They're in the process of still doing their design review. It's going to hopefully, they'll have the design for their new building they want to put up May 1st. What the process looks like is they have about approximately 10,000 square foot building that they're in right now, and they're looking to go back in almost the same size or maybe a little bit bigger, they're hoping. And then that spring break's coming up in March, and they got a lot of activities for the kids. So that's all I have.
Well, we're talking about Civic Center and library and moving. How, have you gotten your eviction notice from the Civic Center yet, sir?
I hadn't thought of that.
This is.
Not quite yet.
I am charging one of his people rent now. I gave him his notice last week.
No, just curious if there's a time frame for your department's move yet.
Well, we're kind of, there was a hiccup with the refrigerator for the new police facility, the evidence refrigerator.
Oh,
there's-
evidence, okay.
Evidence.
Yeah, so it has to stay secured up in the old evidence area, and so we can't get in there to do the things we need to do to get that squared away. So we're all set up here, so we're kind of waiting for that to get out of there so we can move forward on squaring away that area. So we're looking at probably roughly 90 days.
Okay. I'm sure our city recorder is very impatiently waiting for you to be back in the same building.
Actually, she's more impatient about moving boxes that she has stored into an appropriate location.
Excellent.
That's true. We're busting at the seam in records. I've got boxes
So-
piled up everywhere.
Just to add on to that, just a hair. It's one of those things about finishing a project. If there was a developer in the room, they might identify with this. When you're trying to finish a project, it's like you get 99% done, and that last percent is really difficult. The refrigerator / freezer problem, they delivered the appropriate one to the police station, but it was damaged. So they have to bring another one. And, you know, it had to be like 8 weeks out. So that's the hiccup.
And apparently it's a very, I mean, it's an evidence refrigerator, so it has to, and freezer, so it has to, it's special. You can't just go buy it at Home Depot, I guess.
You can't go buy it at Home Depot, no.
I figured this city recorder was just soundproofing her office, and that was what was taking so much time, so she didn't have to listen to all the noise down the hall.
No, I shared a wall with Chief Schoenfeld. I'm immune to most anything.
Counselor Schenkel.
Are you gonna do
No,
this?
go ahead.
Oh. So, just want to tell everybody we talked about the annual, spring cleanup. So that will be held again this year, April 24th, and Friday, and Saturday, April 25th. It is from 8 a.m. to 4 p.m. Don't come before 8, because we won't let you in. The one thing I want to mention is Jason's Weber's cleanup. You know, he does take tires. This year the cost has gone up. It's $8 for normal tires, $25 for the big ones. But you have to have exact cash. He says, I'm not a bank. So if you are planning on bringing tires, make sure you have the proper change for that. But again, it's, you know, we still take our mattresses and bagged garbage. Goodwill will be there, but no paint, no yard debris, no couches, oil, you know, any hazardous chemicals. We can't take any of that stuff. There will be flyers out on what's our website? The Current, right?
Well, Current.
Well, Current will have that, and I know a few people have already posted it out on Facebook and stuff, because it's, I know I'm getting my trailer ready. It's clean out the garage time.
It's not parked in the right of way though, is it?
Yes, Molalla Police will be there too from, they're gonna be there, I think, Friday and Saturday from 9:30 to 3 p.m. for any drugs, take back type things, medications.
And if you have illegal drugs, they'd be more than happy to take those from you too, and possibly offer you a free ride home. I didn't say who's home.
Well, that jail is pretty nice.
Anything else, ma'am?
That's it.
Benches are too
Counselor
comfy.
Childress.
Yeah.
Okay, I want to thank staff and police staff for their work on the community room and getting that up and going as soon as we can, because it was a really important part of the police station, of the, you know, the whole police building, because we don't currently have a nice community room for people. And I would, of course, I know there's many things on the plate and there are people missing, but the sooner that we can come up with some way for people to use it at night, the better, because that's, to me, that's a really important thing to me, that we have it available at night.
We actually agree.
Good, excellent, thank you, I'm glad to hear that. That's all I have, Mayor.
All right, thank you. Council President Vermillion.
Yes, first of all, Mac, excellent job with the SDC presentation. You got all the questions asked or answered before we even asked them, because it was well put together.
Thank you.
You know, I've been doing this for 4 years, and this is probably the clearest presentation of SDCs yet. So thank you. And then, Dan, you're right. Our parks are great. And our library is great, because our 4-year-old grandson came up last weekend, and what did he want to do? He wanted to go to our parks and library. And so we did. Of course, we had to, in between the rainstorms this last weekend. So, and then also I'm looking forward to the C4 meeting next Thursday. It's going to be a fun time, and I'm looking forward to the commissioners to be there finally and see the place. And so that's all I got.
All right, thank you. This week was week 4 of the short session for this year down in legislature. There's been some hits, but we'll see what happens next week. We'll see if one side's passing things, the other side's saying they won't, so we'll see what happens. I was notified last week that our state rep, Rick Lewis, is retiring. We have currently, I've heard 3 people running for his position. 2 people out of Hubbard, 1 person out of Silverton. They've gotten a hold of me and asked to go meet for coffee. I am looking forward to C4 next week. We're gonna have mayors, council members, commissioners from all over Clackamas County here. If you guys have time, please come. Mac and I are gonna be giving a presentation on just everything going on in the city, plus Mac will be doing the UGB and where we're at with that special process that we're all suffering through. Trying to think. Short session does end, I believe, at the end of next week. Hopefully some things don't get passed, or we're gonna be discussing some unfunded mandates, especially with our police department that are coming down the pipeline. Not fun things that I like to discuss. Staff, thank you. Excellent evening. Christy, always appreciate City Recorders Group getting us all the information, and everything was spot on tonight. Thank you so much. Don't forget, if you have, I think everybody's gotten registered for spring conference coming up in April. If you haven't, there's probably not room. I mean, we pretty much, they've shipped us out to the outside of the city for our rooms, so they've already gotten the word on how we are there, so. Luckily, we'll have our trusty chaperone to keep us out of trouble. With that, if there's nothing else for the good of the order, I will adjourn this meeting at 7:14.
I forgot about those.